Shalom, giving all praise to Yahweh Shemir Shah, Shem Kakodash. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in my book, add to bookmark. I put in, what did I put in? I typed in famous Protestants who had slaves. And this is one of the pages that popped up. Black perspective. By the way, I'm going to entitle this video, Christians Had Slaves. Why can't we have slaves? It says, from Protestant supremacy to Christian slavery, by Christopher Cannon Jones, November 20th, 2018. Remember, Revelation 13, 9, and 10. It says here, you see the picture right here, halting at noon. Halting at noon. Slaves kneeling to pray while chained together. So they had you enslaved. And this guy right here looks to appear to be a white boy. But he could be a Gadite, or he could be a Irish, what do you call it, indentured servant. But I don't think they put indentured servants in chains. But you can see that these are Jake. See the Edomite women over there. You can see the kids running around. They all chained up. And they're halting at noon. Slaves kneeling to pray while chained together. Photo, New York Public Library. I'll read the first paragraph. Let's see where it takes me. Early in the morning on April 7, 1712, so we're talking 17, 18, 19, 20, we're talking 300 years ago, a group of approximately 30 enslaved individuals. How do you know that they're in slavery? They're chained up. They chained up. Here you see an Edomite. Here you see a Jake, probably a house nigga. But they were chained up in the name of Christianity, sanctioned by the God of Christianity. It says early in the morning on April 7, 1712, a group of approximately 30 enslaved individuals launched a dramatic revolt. Now, I never heard about this revolt. I heard about Nat Turner. I heard about Denmark Vesey killing several white New Yorkers. This was in New York. So all this bullshit about, oh, there was no slavery in the North. They had slaves in New York. And setting fire to a home after the colonial militia successfully repelled that's the government. The government came in. These people got tired of getting whipped, got tired of working in the field, got tired of being slaves, which is in a human reaction. If somebody shackles you, you get the upper hand and you take down the enemy, which happen to be Christians. It says, after the colonial militia successfully repelled the insurrection, the authorities arrested, questioned, condemned, and executed 21 suspected rebels. In the months that followed, New York's legislators, New York, which is the North, legislators passed multiple acts or laws restricting the activity of enslaved Africans, which are the Israelites. Let's read a little bit more. Let's read another. Let's read another paragraph. And historian Catherine Gerbner's excellent new book, Christian Slavery, Conversation, and Race in the Protestant Atlantic word, the Protestant vocab alone is a Protestant. The rebellion and its aftermath are, are markers of an important moment in the history of religion and the codification of racial slavery. Christians basically said it's all right to have slaves. It's in the Bible. You can have slaves. Abraham had slaves. Two of the enslaved New Yorkers accused in the 1712 revolt were students at a school run by Anglican Christians, missionary Elias Neo, I hope I'm saying that right, who represented a small but increasingly influent cohort of missionaries who championed increased outreach to enslaved Africans around the Atlantic world. After arriving in New York in 1701, Neo went to work both preaching to the enslaved and lobbying for legal reforms to support slave conversions. In other words, they were gonna take these slaves and turn them into Christians. In the wake of the rebellion, however, white planters targeted Neo, his school, and two of the pupils. The planters or the planters charged that conversion to Christianity undermined the social order that structured colonial society. The colonial assembly passed a series of laws that undermined those early lobbied for by Neo and tightened restrictions on slave literacy and conversion. Because in order for you to convert them, you have to teach them how to read. Christian slavery traces the transition over the course of the 17th and 18th century from an ideology of Protestant supremacy, Protestant supremacy, Protestant supremacy. So these Christians, they were justified in having slaves, in which Protestant planters claimed Christian identity for themselves while denying it to enslaved Africans and Indians. So they wanted to be the Christians, and they wanted these people to not accept Christianity. So they didn't give a shit about them. Whatever happened to love thy neighbor? It says enslaved Africans and Indians, which are the tribes of Israel. To one of Christian slavery, which reconciled Protestantism with bondage and promoted the conversion of enslaved people. In other words, we want you to be Christians, but you're still gonna be a slave, nigga. Christian slavery makes two central contributions to the existing scholarly literature. The first concerns the replacement of religion with race as an organizing principle of slave societies. Gardner places the emergence of whiteness as a social, political, and legal category. So even if they are Christians, we're on a higher level than that. And the transnational and cross-denominational context, highlighting both the connection that linked divergent Protestant groups and the influence of Spanish and French Catholic practices on English and Danish slave law. So they had laws for the slaves. This is what you can do, and this is what you can't do to a slave. You can't kill him on a Sunday because that's the Lord's Sabbath. The second key contribution of Gardner's work is her a reassessment of Christian conversion for enslaved Africans in the Americas, arguing that historians have overstated the significance of emotive worship for the appeal of Christianity. She wanted them to be Christian, but they can still be slaves. To the enslaved, she emphasized the powerful draw of literacy, meaning learning to read, associated with Protestant conversion in the 17th and 18th century. So, you got the gist of it. Christian slavery is organized into 8 thematic chapters that move broadly chronologically. The first 2 chapters place the church at the center of England's 17th century overseas empire, because actually the colonies was just an expansion of the British Empire. Goes on, let me jump down. It said overlooked activity of Anglican clergymen in reciting and reinforcing slave codes like those enacted in Barbados. In 1661, it was through the mouths of ministers, the author explains that the brutal slave laws were enunciated, year after year, while later missionaries would challenge the ideology of Protestant supremacy. Their forebearers were crucial in its implementation. The gradual shift from Protestant supremacy to Christian slavery was initiated not by Anglicans, but rather by Quakers in the West Indies, a subject explored in Death and Character 3, in chapter 3, While often imagined as the abolitionist crusaders, they would become in the 18th century. Quakers in the 16th century or the 1600s saw no discrepancy between their religious beliefs and the enslavement of others, and were at the forefront of the attempt to adapt slavery to Christianity. So they said it'll be wrong for us not to introduce you to the true God of the Bible. So here, nigga, we're gonna give you a slave Bible, and you're still gonna be a slave until you die. And when you die, you get to eat that pie in the sky. Anyway, there you have it. From Protestant supremacy to Christian slavery. Now, like I said, I'm gonna end it. I started with the scripture, I'm gonna end it with the scripture. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints of the Most High, which are Israelites. So your future would be what? Pursuant to the scriptures, you got to go into slavery. Anyway, with that, I'm gonna say shalom.